everybody, and welcome to day 3 of the 28-day Get Hired Challenge. Today, we're talking about diversity, and is a lack of diversity a security risk? Let's get into it. All right, everyone, welcome back. It's day 3 of the 28-day Get Hired Challenge, and we are diving into diversity. I know this is a topic that gets a lot of attention, and there are some critics out there. There are some people who believe, like me, that diversity is crucial. So let's talk about it. Is diversity, or a lack thereof, a security risk? This is one of the topics we cover in the very first chapter of the Cybersecurity Career Guide. Remember, each day we're going through a new topic out of the book, and I'm giving away one copy of the book. Stay tuned to the end. I'll tell you how you can win your copy this episode. All right, so let's talk about diversity for a minute, because diversity, as I said, it's a topic that gets a lot of attention, and believe it or not, there's still a fair amount of debate over, how important is diversity and so forth. But let's start with just some numbers, okay? Let's look at some studies and what they found about diversity. So, our first one is a study that CINAC conducted back in 2020. So these are studies that I reference in the book, so that's why we're looking at a study from 2020. And in their diversity and inclusion report, one of the questions they asked the respondents, do you receive the same opportunities as other genders? Now, what was alarming about this was that 34% of women said no. Now you might say, that's only 34%, but that's a significant factor. That's a third of women who feel like for some reason they are not receiving the same opportunities as others. The next question was, do you receive the same opportunities as people of other ethnicities? And here it gets even worse. 54% of those from minority backgrounds said no. You know what? We don't get the same level of opportunities. We have to work harder to get the same opportunities. So already we start to see there that, this should be concerning. If you have that many women and that many folks from minority ethnicities saying, hey, you know what? We're not being treated fairly. That means that those are people that we're driving away from this industry. And so what does that mean to us? I mean, how does that impact us? Well, for that, we can go look at another study. This one we're going back to 2017. And we're going back to 2017 for a reason I'll cover in a minute. But the Global Information Security Workforce Study is something that ISC Squared has done a number of times. And each time they do it, they release some interesting information. So in 2017, looking at the North American workforce, a couple alarming things that they found were, first of all, only 14% of the workforce were women. Additionally, only 23% identified as a minority ethnicity. And worse still, only 9% identified as Black or African American. All of these fall well below the population representation across the entire population of North America. Obviously, women make up 51% of the population. Minority ethnicities are somewhere on the order of 35 to 40%. And Black or African Americans make up 13 to 15%, depending on whose numbers you look at. So why did I choose 2017 instead of the newer studies? Well, two reasons. One, ISC Squared stopped asking some of the questions, at least as of the writing of the book. The other available reports that were out there simply didn't go into this level of depth with ethnicity in particular. Second, as many of you might be aware, ISC Squared changed their criteria for what they considered a cybersecurity professional. And in that change of criteria, suddenly, we saw an increase in women. Now, even that increase was only in the low 20%, which again, when there's 51% of the population in North America that are women, that's alarming. And that speaks to, unequivocally, underrepresentation. That's the very definition of it. So, is this an issue? Well, you remember in our last episode, we talked about that hacker culture, right? We talked about how on the internet, or before that, even when we were in BBSs, no one knew who anybody was. We didn't know what color your skin was. We didn't know what gender you were. We didn't really care. But obviously, in the workforce, that's not the case. We don't have that same luxury of that level of anonymity. And so we see this. So is this a security issue, though? Let me ask you this. And this is what we talk about in the book. How do you solve a problem with a team? Because after all, cybersecurity is all about solving problems. We're looking for ways, how do we secure these systems? How do we predict where attackers might look and make sure that we defend? How do we look for places that within our environment that may already be compromised? These are all problems we're trying to solve on a daily basis within cybersecurity. So if you have a team of individuals, how do you try to solve that problem? Well, usually you'll solicit feedback and brainstorm and share ideas. Well, if everybody in that room comes from similar backgrounds, it's proven that problem solving is not nearly as effective. So this is where diversity is important. Sometimes I think people believe that diversity is all about people's feelings and just trying to make everybody feel good. And you know what? That's important too. But the reality is diversity has a business value for us. It has a value for us when we're talking about cybersecurity, because when I'm trying to solve a problem, I want people who are going to look at a problem very differently. I want to hear those different perspectives. I want them to play off of each other, because that's how we come up with creative and innovative solutions. So when we're talking about building a cybersecurity workforce, or any workforce for that matter, this is why having representative diversity is important. So, one of the other things you'll hear, and I find this actually frustrating, is you'll hear people who are, detractors of the concept of diversity and inclusion will say things like, well, I want diversity of thought. Well, duh. But what they're implying there is that you can have diversity of thought with a bunch of people who all look and think the same in a room. And no, you can't, because there are distinct experiences and perspectives that people of different genders, people of different ethnicities, people of other different backgrounds are all going to come to the table with. And if everybody comes from one gender, one ethnic group, you're not going to get that broad range of thought process, of perspective, of vision and ideas and different ways of thinking that are the things that make your problem solving more effective. So when we think about this issue of diversity and we think about where hacker culture started us off and the problems we face, we can see where this is a true issue for many of those who want to get started in cybersecurity to overcome. And this is one of those key things that, as a hiring manager myself, I'm always thinking about this. I'm always thinking about how I can word my job descriptions to be more inclusive, to encourage applicants from a broader, more diverse pool. I'm looking at, when I talk to people, I'm not looking for people who think like me. I'm looking for people who make me think, oh, that's a really good idea. I never thought of it that way before. So that's what we need hiring managers to do. But for those of you that are out there watching this, you're not watching this because you're trying to hire people, you're trying to get hired. So I call this to light because this is a foreshadowing of some of the things we're going to go through in the coming chapters. We're going to talk about how you get over and conquer bad job descriptions. We're going to talk about how do you figure out what roles you can be qualified for even when maybe the job description doesn't seem to look like it. We're going to talk about how do you present your authentic self and use that as a powerful tool in your interviews, in your resume, in your day-to-day jobs to be successful. These are all the topics and more that we're going to be going through as we continue on in the 28-day Get Hired Challenge. So, about that free book, let's talk about it. You know the drill now. If you watched the first 2 episodes, I want you to respond back in the comments below. I want you to tell me why you think diversity is or is not a security risk. Share that with me. Share that with the folks out there. Once again, we'll randomly pick a winner from the comments, and you'll receive a free copy of the book. Also, a reminder, Manning is offering 35% off all their titles all throughout the month of February. Go to their website, manning.com, enter the discount code 28day CHL Miller, or you can just go to the link that's right here on the screen. I'll put that down in the show description like I have the last 2 days, or easier still, just scan the QR code. It'll take you right to where you need to go. So, thank you so much for tuning in once again. I hope you enjoyed day 3. I hope you guys are enjoying this series. We've got a long way to go. We got 25 more days to go. Lots of topics to cover. We're going to start talking about understanding the roles in cybersecurity and then how to get you hired in cybersecurity. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Take care.